Martin Popoff from the Contrarians here. Just wanted to put in a bit of a tribute show to David Johansen, who we just lost February 28th, 2025 at the age of 75. He had cancer for a long time, stage 4 cancer. He had a brain tumor. His daughter was doing a fundraiser for him. There were pictures. It was pretty rough. But yeah, just wanted to put something on record about the great man. My origin story with the New York Dolls is that I was working at Rock Island Tape Center in Trail, BC as a kid, probably 14, 15 years old. And we had I've told this story a few times, but we had a big record collection. Me and a buddy started running the record collection. But I remember for years there, for some reason they ended up with a couple hundred copies each of this album, the debut New York Dolls, and this album, in Too Much Too Soon. And they started at $4.99. They even had their own special bin after a while. They started at $4.99. They went to $2.99, and then there were still lots and lots of them left at 99 cents, which is such a it's such poetry to how unfortunately this band didn't play outside of the major centers, and frankly New York or New York City. They got a lot of press during the years. I've collected a big press archive of a lot of the press they've done or they had over the years. So they were pushed by Mercury, but they were just too I guess it was this photo was just too shocking, and this photo for what was to be able to break it in the rest of America, sort of thing. And David Johansen, he's at the front of the situation. We always looked upon him as sort of the leader of the band. He was incredible front man. He had that big shouty Mick Jagger sort of voice. It's couple other things that are kind of poetic about sadly celebrating his life and dealing with his passing. So he dies February 28th. The next day, Andrew Cuomo is trying to make a comeback, running for mayor of New York City, saying New York is in trouble. Well, this was one of New York's greatest denizens. Like a light has gone out on New York City, losing the great David Johansen. He's one of the great New York characters. But yeah, and the other thing that I always found, I found so ironic, the last pictures that we see of David Johansen, he aged into 75, right? He aged exactly into that same sort of age, still looking like the alternate badass version of Steven Tyler. He still had that look late in life, right? That was a big thing that people compared him to at the beginning there. It was sort of neck and neck for a brief period of time there with the New York Dolls, Aerosmith, and Kiss. And what I always like to say or point out to people is that a little bit like I think I've done a podcast episode on this, when a band is briefly cooler than the other band, sort of thing, and then but people forget that. I talk about Megadeth right around Rust in Peace versus Metallica, and I talk about Angel Witch right around the Angel Witch debut versus Iron Maiden. Well, at this point, New York was the better band than Aerosmith, and even at this point it was still pretty neck and neck. And then of course, obviously, a lot of drug problems, deaths in the family. New York Dolls just went away and never made any more albums until, well, actually, I just want to show there's many compilations over the years. But they came back and did actually 3 studio albums late in life, right? There's just my advanced version of one of them, and there's another comp. What else we got here? We got one. There's another one. So they came back and did 3 albums, and of course, but they were gone after 1974. There were no more records, and we know Aerosmith's great career trajectory after that, Toys in the Attic, Rock. So like the other 2 examples that I've cited here, there's that brief magical moment where the underdog band was the overdog band. And so, yeah, that's what we love about David Johansen is the quality of these records. And that's another thing I want to speak about just briefly is that, by the way, and then of course we've got, he comes back as a solo artist. Let's mention this first. He comes back and does, this is the debut. We've got, where's my in style? I don't know what my in style is. Anyway, so we get a live album as well. Remember, we get Scrooged, we get Buster Poindexter, Hot, Hot, Hot. There's an album. It's the third one. And then I really like this one on Facebook. I posted a song from this. I don't know why I like this one so much. It's very, very 80s produced. But yeah, you get the cleaned up. Well, there's a great iconic shot of him as well. You get the cleaned up version of David Johansen. So, he was never obviously never a metalhead. I mean, he fits into this whole, I don't know, he's kind of like a cross between hard rock and Lou Reed in a way. He had a kind of a wry sense of humor. I got to meet him once. That's the other story. So, I always remember, so the great life lesson David Johansen taught me was that whole thing about 80% of life is just showing up thing, right? Because I remember at the Phoenix here in Toronto, I went down and met those guys, and he was super nice, and Sil was great, and sat and chatted with them backstage. The guy from Hanoi Rocks was in the band as well, right? But I just remember looking around saying, where's everybody else pestering the New York Dolls, right? For interviews or autographs or whatever, right? And there was no one around. I thought, I believe I just showed up at that one, and talked my way in, being somewhat known in the industry to be able to do that and get a little interview. I can't remember how much preparation I did, but yeah, so that's, when I got these signed, of course. And, but no, I just wanted to also, so yeah, just the career was, there were a lot of records there, and we forget there were a lot of records. There was a good prolific little solo career there. Like I say, they came back and did 3 studio albums late in life. And these are legendary. And I just want to speak a little more on these for a moment. People always put this band down, saying that it was, in a live situation, maybe they were a little sloppy or whatever. But I mean, most of what I've ever seen live of them look perfectly fine. But these 2 records are well put together. They're well produced. There's arrangement on them, especially the second one with Shadow Morton producing. There's a lot of added little ear candy into this album. There's a lot of variety on these albums. I think they are both. There's some great hard rock, proto-punk ideas on there. Even, dare I say, heavy metal. You look at the debut, and you've got things like Jet Boy and Frankenstein, pretty heavy songs on here, Vietnamese Baby, and then super famous songs like Personality Crisis, Trash. And yeah, again, we'll just show that picture there again. But yeah, so both of them are much better albums than people give them credit for. I think they are more professional and ambitious albums than the entirety of the Blue Oyster Cult Black and White period, the entirety of the first 3 Kiss albums, and certainly the first Aerosmith album, if not Get Your Wings. I mean, Get Your Wings is kind of tied with these, like I say. But yeah, I think they were a really good band, and those albums deserve a lot more credit than they get. People just kind of slot them into the punk rock story, and they kind of belong in that hard rock story. And that's kind of the last thing I wanted to say, is that there's a lot of influence of the New York Dolls on the future of heavy metal. You think of Johnny Thunders and the Hair, and you think of Guns N' Roses and a lot of the hair metal bands, right? I mean, just hair metal in general. The blueprint of that is essentially Aerosmith, Van Halen, and the New York Dolls, right? You think of Hanoi Rocks as being, directly influenced by the New York Dolls. Mike Monroe and his look, Mike Monroe and his voice. I mean, that's obviously, you can't have really influence on that, but Mike Monroe, Mick Jagger, and David Johansen all have that shouty singing style, right? Kind of a hoodlum thing. And, and that's the other thing, people think New York Dolls, oh, they're in drag all the time, right? Well, it's not really drag. It's just this cool, classy, feminized sort of look. But I mean, this look is so visionary, and so much, might I add, so much cooler and aged well and less embarrassing than the entirety of the UK glam look, right? This is just a cool look that essentially shows up in the hair metal world. And you think of your Poisons and your Rats, and rat oddly, I recently read that they were influenced by the look of Adam Ant, believe it or not, Adam and the Ants. But yeah, this is a big influence on the whole hair metal scene. They're kind of like the leaders of, if there is an American glam movement at the time, to coincide with the UK one. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about this sad situation. And of course, every single one of those guys, they are all gone. So this is like an original Ramones situation or a Motorhead situation, where every single one of the New York Dolls is no longer with us. And yeah, I've had 2 or 3 chats with Sylvain. He was great. But yeah, these other guys never talked to again, besides David. Yeah, remember, this is produced by Todd Rundgren. So yeah, sadly, David Johansen, gone, 75 years old, born January 9th, 1950 in New York, died in New York, February 28th, 2025. New York has lost one of its great rock and roll characters. Go play some New York Dolls and remember David Johansen.